You'll- There you go. So we called it to order. You've got the minutes that were mailed out to you.
Entertain a motion to approve, no corrections or additions. Second, all in favor? Treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report is behind your agenda, pretty straightforward. Not much in project fee income yet, but we do have some closings that are lined up for May, so that number will look a little better. But still having a good year in terms of income. Expenses were fairly minimal. I do have coming up the EDC conference, there's some marketing involved with that. But beyond that, month was a bit of a loss, but oh, I'm sorry, the other professional expenses, that is the strategic plan that we're going through, that 17,000 at the bottom of the page. So expenses for the month, 18,000 loss of 21 for April, still very positive on the year. In May, we'll see significant shift the other way. Balance sheet is behind that, still very flush. No liabilities out there. With cash position.
Questions? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. New business.
This one I'm a little weird on, Jim, I might need some help, but to affirm the e-vote for Jim Caniglia, who wasn't at our last meeting, this was the, you were able to vote and review the resolution for approval on the York Travel Center, YTC 1. I need to affirm your e-vote today. I think that's how it goes, right?
Yeah.
As awkward as that might be, thank you for affirming your e-vote.
That was my vote.
I was in over analysis mode. Do we have to have a motion so Jim can make an e-vote?
No.
Thank you. Okay, the next piece of business is the negative declaration on seeker. So it's a full packet in front of you. We've gone through this 7 ways to Sunday. This is a let me see if I can recap this for you. The resolution was at the tail end. I figured that was the best spot for it so that you understand what it is that you're approving. So the packet is actually in front of it, of part 1, part 2, and then there's a part 3 narrative. So back in February, we sent out, this board actually voted to be lead agency on the process. Those letters were sent out to identified parties. The identified parties had no opposition to that, so we were declared lead agency. So we kicked off the secret process on the transfer of property from the Empire State Development to the Livingston County IDA. And you'll see acronyms in here that define it as LCF, which is Livingston Correctional Facility. So the alphabet soup. On part 1 of the project, it really just defines very general use transfer of the property from, again, ESD to the IDA. Talks about who are the authority, the authorizing parties that are involved, where this is. It's a transfer of about 170 acres, 169 point something of the existing buildings, the existing structures, as well as some vacant land. It's difficult to kind of define this because there really is no proposed use. This is just the transfer. So it's really as is. We did have to make some assumptions that go along with this. We assumed that there would be roughly 400 employees. There were roughly that much when it was a prison facility. We did do a traffic study, assuming those 400 employees, and put that into place. So as far as that's concerned, we did make some of those assumptions, and it really didn't have any significant impact whatsoever. So if you look at part 2 is kind of where it goes into any of the environmental effects and whether there would be any adverse effects of the transfer. There are some yeses that we check here. Unfortunately, this is all the small boxes that are beneath. They show up on my PDF on my screen, but for some reason they don't print when I print them. But if you see a yes checked box, you can go underneath that, and every one of those boxes underneath is checked under no or small impact. So where there's no, you don't have to answer those questions. Where there's a yes, it was a no or a small impact. Honestly, the best way to look at it is part 3, the narrative. That gives in word description what each of these impacts are. So if you'll see impact on land was checked yes, you'll see a narrative on the part 3 piece that talks about that. Where it's a land transfer and rezoning is coming in the future, any potential subdivisions would have to be taken up at that particular time. And the maintenance and activities that were assumed are basically in general need and do not have any sort of adverse conditions. So that is essentially what's in front of you as a part 1, part 2, and part 3 narrative. The resolution, which is what I'm asking you to adopt today, basically says that we've gone over this and that we have, we agree that there are no adverse conditions to the IDA taking over possession of the property. And that essentially, as the lead agency, we're not making any assumptions that would change the direction of the pattern from putting this back into play as a commercial facility, just as it was. How am I doing, guys? Is that how we describe these things? Perfect.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Okay. Got that going sorry today. Anything that.
Is it a type 1 because it's so large? But it's really, there's nothing going on. Really besides this way. Right. So really, typically this would be a type 2, which would be no action would be needed. But due to the size of it, the type 1, because we're not subdividing at this point, we're not doing anything to the property. It's that all it is just changing hands. So.
Right, and it is because of the size, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Typically, you would not have to do seeker on the transfer if it were, I forget what the threshold is it 20 acres or something smaller? It might even be less than that, but that's why you're seeing all of this paperwork.
Yep.
So as an existing facility, you know, these are pretty easy questions to answer. Is there any disturbance to the property? No, we're talking about taking the existing buildings as they are. Is there you know, groundwater effects or impacts? No, it's all sort of already been through the ringer for that. If we were constructing a property, this would be the point. So essentially, again, what I'm looking for is passage of the or adoption of the negative declaration for seeker saying that there's no adverse impact. Second.
All in favor?
I gotta be a roll. on this.
Well, roll. I vote aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you.
All ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. For seeker, did I do a lousy job? Kirsty signing it as we speak.
Kirsty's not the secretary.
What's that?
Isn't Mary Ellen?
Sure.
Are you the treasurer?
I thought it
There
was.
can't be, yeah.
You are. Mary Ellen.
Oh, it's the secretary. Okay.
I thought I was the treasurer.
You are.
Change that, didn't
Okay.
we? Sorry about
He
that.
told me, and so I was like, all right.
Is that why you were looking at me weird?
I thought because
Sorry.
a lot of times I don't know what's going on.
We're gonna do one for you. All right, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you for catching it for you. I'm sorry.
The archaeological work you did on
It was done. Yep. Plates are AI. Okay, I'm gonna kick to more.
Okay, you should have a handout in front of you. I don't, so I'm gonna go off memory, but yes, that one. Okay, so the front page is really just a high-level overview of the types of things we might be able to use this software for. I think everybody was here last time except Jim. Jim, I think Dwight wasn't here too. We went over this software program at our last meeting. And the board wanted us to just go back and get a little bit more detail and a reference from another community that's already using this. So this is a database that pings cell phones. So it gives us visitor information and we're able to, as you can see on the front of the sheet there, understand where people are coming from, how far they're traveling, how long they're staying, where they're going, kind of the chronological order of their visit. So it's going to be a great tool for economic development, also for tourism. There will definitely be some shared use there. When you go to the first spread, you'll see we had them run a couple of reports for us that are specific to Livingston County, just to give you a feel for the types of things we can do with this. So that first spread is taking a look, comparing 2 weekends in Livingston County. One is in Dansville at the Festival of Balloons from last year. and the other is in Geneseo at the Geneseo Air Show. So two similar type events. I was actually very surprised by the data on this one, that significantly more traffic at the Festival of Balloons than at the Geneseo Air Show. But you can see some different data in those charts of where people came from, when they left, where did they go, and how long they're staying, how far they're traveling from. On the next spread, they take a look at a specific retail center. So in this case, they're looking in Geneseo up where the Walmart and Wegmans plazas are. And again, taking a look at kind of three different sets, people who are traveling to that area from within a 50-mile radius, people that are traveling over 50 miles, but less than 250, and then people who are traveling from more than 250 miles away. And you can see it broken down by month. Of the number of visitors. And then you can see where they're coming from in each of those categories.
Last time, but how do they collect this data? Where does this information come from?
So Placer AI has a contract with thousands of cell phone apps. So if you are using any of those cell phone apps and allowing location services, they're getting data from your cell phone. And then they further take a look at the resting place of your phone. So even if you have an area code from like I still have an area code from Corning, but they know I live here because my phone rests here every night.
That's comforting.
It's
But it may not always be completely accurate because like I have everything disabled on my phone.
Mhm.
So.
So Thursday, they can sort of show up.
Yeah.
So, but they have an algorithm, so they have taken that into account. They've figured what percentage of people they are tracking and multiplied that out to give us a best estimate of actual numbers. So the numbers you see are not just the active cell phones. They have been converted to what they're estimating to be a number in full.
It'd probably be easier for them to do this, if people stay overnight at hotels.
Yep, so
And that's a pace.
yes, that you have to have that home base for a specific period of time for it to recognize that that's your home versus that you're on a trip and staying somewhere for a week. So I mean, they'll see those trends also.
250,000 people. Well, some of them will stay in Genesee County and Livingston County and Ontario County.
So that's the kind of thing, that's a great example. They'd be able to see that. They'd be able to see that all of these people are spending the day at the PGA and then see where they're staying. That, they're spreading out across how many counties for their overnights, how many of them came for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, where else did they go while they were here? Yeah,
Great tool, but man.
it is,
I don't know.
yeah.
And you can go back in this, so it will take us, was it to 17?
2017, yep.
To find data going back, so it will allow us to kind of look at any historical events as well.
Yeah. And we can have them custom build areas for us. So if we want them to kind of draw a location around one of our downtowns, something like Mural Festival that we had last year, we're able to go back and see each community on those specific days when they had their festival. So a lot of different things we can do with this. Retail leakage analysis to understand what businesses would fit in each community. So I did have a call with Sarah, blanking on her last name, from Binghamton Economic Development. Glose, yes, thank you. Sarah Glose. She's the Director of Economic Development in Binghamton. That was a reference that Placer AI provided so that we could talk with them about how they're using the program. She was very upfront about the fact, and I think this was the fear, that they do not have the expertise and time to dig into this program as much as they would like to. But they have an office of 3 people. So we actually do have a larger office than they do. But the important takeaway was, she said that they're assigned a specific customer service representative and they are extremely responsive. So she said, you don't have to be an expert in the program. You call your customer service rep and say, I've got a site selector looking for information. Can you help me run some reports on X, Y, and Z? And they're able to pull the reports for you. So she said that, even if you don't have the time to know the system as well as you'd like to, they will do the work for you.
Have they used it yet?
Yes,
For like, they have a success, like they put a business in place or an event.
they do
or
not
something.
have a large attraction project that they've landed as a result, but she did specifically talk about the fact that they've been able to enter into conversations that they otherwise would have never gotten a foot in the door. And that was the biggest takeaway for me. She said, by today's standard, you can't even play in the economic development game if you don't have this level of data. And if it's not, they're shopping your website before you even know they're looking at you. So if you don't have this kind of data available, they're moving past you to the next community. So she said, you don't know when you're being passed over, but they're seeing more activity now that they're able to provide more robust information to these site selectors. So she said, it's one of those things that you could go months and months without touching it and using it. But that day you need it, it's so valuable to have.
Today
So,
we rely on
Mhm.
shows, the Rochester MSA. I will fill that down.
Right.
I forgot, what is it, 26,000?
26.
yes, a year. Yeah. And they did ask her about, I said, did you have additional fees? After you signed your contract, did you have more things pop up? And she said, no, it's flat fee for the year. She said there are some add-ons that you can choose to purchase, but they have not done that. She said what they have is so advanced. The thought of bringing any add-ons on is just, beyond what they need.
If I recall, and it's been a while, I've been looking at two of these, not with the Granicus one that we're also looking at. It doesn't do the same thing, but isn't there a spot where you can make a dashboard for yourself?
Yes,
That's with Placer, so that you can have it, so that you can pull it up and it's already pulled the certain data that you've identified.
right. And you can embed that in your website so that it's connected to Placer AI. So it's constantly pulling current data so that when site selectors go to our website, they see the dashboard, the information's there kind of in live time.
Yes, I say that because if you find yourself without the time, if you set it up as a one-time, all of a sudden have yourself a report that pops right up with your one copy.
And
This is 26,000 to purchase it, and how much a year?
26,000 a year.
A year,
26.
Yeah.
that's it.
It's a cloud-based, so we're not really purchasing it. It's an annual subscription and it's based on population.
What happens to your data if you don't want to renew?
It's always there. We just don't have access to it. Everybody who's paying has access to our data,
Yeah, they turn
to
it on.
everybody's data.
So
Yeah.
after a year, if we decided not to do it, you lose all that data. There's no way to download.
Well, we could download reports as PDFs and we would have those, but they would be a
Okay.
snapshot in time.
Nothing new would be adding on to it.
Right.
Nor could we go backwards if we wanted to check
Right.
something.
I will also mention, right now, we're doing our strategic plan, and one of the things that our consultant is going to be making a recommendation of in there is specific data sets that we should be tracking on an ongoing basis so that we can see the impact of our programs and that we can see trends over time. So she's going to be helping us identify specific data sets that, as Bill said, can kind of just be set up as a memorized report and as our dashboard, but then we'll be able to see those over time. We can look at them back to 2017 and continue to track them moving forward to start to see some of those trends in our communities.
I love the data. The problem is I don't have any good granular data. I get data from Finger Lakes Regional Tourism, from GRE. And it's essentially business labor statistics, or Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's census data. This type of stuff gives us more granular data to what people are doing when they're either in our county or they're coming to our county. So I think it's something that we're going to be able to use very.
Oh, she did also mention in Binghamton, they share the software with the planning department and the police department. So we have not talked to other departments about a cost share, but it sounds like that could be a possibility. If that's something in the future, if we get this and, kind of get our feet under us, we might be able to then take it to other departments.
Planning truck full of data nerds, and I don't know what the police would use it for, but it's interesting.
I would imagine it'd be helpful with traffic control and understanding crowds and where people are heading, and yeah,
Does Genesee County use this?
I don't know.
Not that
My guess is no, because when I asked him for a reference, I asked him for a county in New York State. And he came back to me with Binghamton and said, they're similar in size population wise. And while they're a city, they're dealing with multiple neighborhoods or retail centers within their geography, just like we are with our villages programs. And, so it is comparable, but I think if he had a county, he would have given me that.
Yeah, because I see Binghamton, they've got a population of 48,000
Mhm.
in that's in Chemung County, right? Rural.
Yep.
So what's that population rural? That probably is more like 100.
I'm sure it's much larger, but this is specifically the city of Binghamton that's using
What do
it.
you think? You got handicap, clinics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this. I do wanna. I would love to see this as part of our toolbox. It would be a one-year commitment. I think it's up to us to make it purposeful, and use it as best as we can. I am looking to do this through the IDA, and certainly will transition and transfer to the LCDC, to tourism, to the county, to planning, to the chamber could, sure. If we know what to pull, this becomes a pretty easy tool to put these reports together.
So we have the money.
Yes.
It's not like we don't have the money and with other opposing parts.
It'd be a good year to do it, actually.
And then if we don't see payback from it, if we don't see, that it's useful to us, then.
Yeah, I
we
guess
lose it, but.
That would be my like biggest thing is just like
do it.
that there's a way, this would give us a way to track that it's working. But
Mhm.
that at the end of the year, that there's like actual tangible.
Gotta come back here next year for renewal, that's for
Right.
sure. So
Yeah.
I think at that point, if not 12 times in between, then do you see anything from that would help us?
So are you saying, so we had talked at our last meeting, it was May 1st to May 1st, or May 1st to April 30th, but where are we at?
If we contact them today and send the contract, it's May 5th
Okay.
to May 5th. Yeah.
It's a switch.
It's a good amount, get a lot of good
Yeah.
data points, Rancho Viejo. Pulling up.
Where is the deal?
So then you're gonna monitor it, Maureen, or?
I think we'll all be getting in there. Yeah.
I think Molly will probably be the one that really dives in. She loves the data stuff and not that I don't, because I'll be using it too. It'll be interesting to kind of compare what each of us sort of starts. to
Right. I
track
think we'll have
first.
different, you'll probably be more on the site selector industrial side. I'll probably be looking at the downtowns and the villages, smaller business, events. Yeah.
Where I'm coming from is next year, this time, or before next year, this time, or budget time in July or August. If we could take something to the other department. that'd be-
Oh, sure. Yeah, Ian's constantly looking for programs. Department head meetings. I'm happy to put this out.
As sheriff's office might be interested, at least looking at, a lot of data.
If you demo it at a department head meeting, there might be other departments that we don't know they'd be interested, but if they see it, maybe they'd have a use for it.
Yeah, there are ties to this thing that I don't even think I'm thinking about yet. I mean, I'm already starting to think, is there a workforce development type of tie to this? And I don't, maybe it's I don't know.
Would providing accessibility to other departments affect the cost?
No. So in what she said in Binghamton is the city of Binghamton purchased this. So anybody with a Binghamton email address can have a username set up. So we might want to think about that even with our contract that we're Livingston County, not, well, I mean, it is the IDA entering into the contract. So I don't know if they'd be flexible with county users.
Esri is, I know that the planning department has us listed as a user for Esri, which again is not as granular as this, but it's a good thought to see if we can sign some others up. They might be using it. In ways that we don't
I
know
just
about.
don't want to find yourselves in a position where presentations and then go to departments and then. few
Right.
That we want in, and then all of a sudden.
We pick up the- yeah.
All these people. you
Right,
gotta
right.
Yeah.
get it.
26,000
So maybe it's an
goes to
ask.
126,000.
I think that's where it is.
We'd be able to flush that out before.
Good time to try it. The interesting to see how this works April 8th, 2024.
Yeah, definitely.
Say California area, right? Some of the best places to use this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
You've got a program coming up.
Yes, March 23rd in the evening, March 23rd, 6:30 PM at Strange Design, and then March 24th at 9:30 AM at the Avon Park Theater. Same event. You only have to go to one.
May.
May, sorry. What did I say, March? I don't know what month it is, May 23rd, May 24th. So we've got folks coming in from Sweetwater, Tennessee. They have a population of 5,700 and they hosted over 50,000 people for the 2017 eclipse. So they're giving a presentation kind of, what we did to prepare, what in hindsight we wish we had done, kind of lessons learned. And then we'll be talking about what the county's offering. There's a small grant program for communities to put on some type of festival or event. And we have a few designated viewing areas, one in Caledonia, one in Geneseo. So we're trying to direct tourists to those designated viewing areas and have things going on locally for residents to cut down on traffic in all of one area.
3:30 in the afternoon, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And the northwestern corner of the county has the most totality. So Caledonia, York, Avon, Geneseo, the schools are closed.
Schools are out.
Schools are all closed.
During that week.
Yeah.
No, they are closing this day because of this. It's, yeah.
But I mean the grounds,
Oh,
because you've got the parking, you've got the parking lot. you've got the
If
football.
they, yeah, I don't know yet if any of the schools have events planned, but they will not be in session.
this is the Monday right after Easter Sunday, I believe, right? So
Yes.
this year, I think some schools took it off.
Yeah, they were closed Friday.
because- Yeah,
Easter Monday.
Easter
but
Monday.
Next year, our week of vacation is this week.
Okay. so they're
Okay.
off.
So
For
like,
some
our-
districts,
our
like
week
Avon's
is
the week before.
Right, and so.
Plus
this-
Monday.
This coming year is the week.
Okay.
It's like 8, 9, 10, whatever. it is.
Okay.
That was one of the issues that was identified, not issues, but one of the opportunities that was identified early on was if your kids are, if you do have classes, can you either dismiss them in a half day to avoid some of the congestion at 3:30 or keep that beyond 3:30 to make it an educational opportunity? And what we found out from the schools is we don't have kids, so.
Yeah.
It's already important.
But we want the communities to understand, I mean, we are working on this from a tourism standpoint, but the communities need to be aware of the potential impact to their police departments, traffic control, emergency medical services. I mean, what we heard from other communities that had the 2017 eclipse, I mean, you're going to have far more traffic than you think is possible. And I mean, restaurants will be sold out of food. Most restaurants around here aren't open on Mondays. So we're talking to them about that, they're,
Can you just tell me again, strange design and then what?
Strange Design is the 23rd at 6:30 PM. Avon Park Theater, 9:30 AM on the 24th. Same presentation, only need to go to one, just 2 opportunities.
One piece of data that I did see from this is, if you look on Livco Sol, livcosol.com, you'll see the path of totality. There's an Esco map there that's got it. And I don't think this map's on there yet, but the closest points to us for where people would travel to get into this path of totality really kind of come up 15 to 390. So it's kind of the Lewisburg, Williamsport, Corning, Horseheads, Painted Post into Livingston County. So that's kind of the area that we're looking to target in terms of getting people here.
From my understanding, most of our accommodations are already booked out. So another thing for communities to start thinking about, and we'll be talking about this at these meetings. People are going to literally want to rent out space in their yards. You can camp in my yard, you can pull your camper up, you can buy a parking spot in my driveway. And that's, I mean, we are hands off there. That is up to, they've got to talk to the village, they've got to talk to the town, code enforcement, permits. So that's the kind of stuff we're trying to make communities aware of, that you guys need to be ready for this kind of stuff. We're going to promote it. And we're going to tell those restaurants to be open, but we're out of rooms to stay. So
Next April.
So we need to-
yes,
That's what I was wondering, schools, they might be able to make some money off this, especially in the program.
Not with the food York is serving. That's my dead dog.
They've got cafeterias.
Be interesting to see what communities come up with, but our longest duration is in Caledonia. I think I mentioned this.
Yeah. 3:33.
3:33, and then I think Dansville for the south end, I want to say it's maybe 2:15 or.
That sounds about
2:30.
right.
So it's about a minute difference, which is interesting, but what, 30, 40 miles difference.
Yeah.
And then, work school, what's about 8,000-10,000 on Fourth of July. So, that's what I'm saying, the school can always do it, the capacity.
Yeah,
Yeah, so. Saving or.
He fixed got 1,000 months. No, I wouldn't have seen anything this morning. Back to Placer. So this is, obviously, this is one application for Placer that we would be interested in tracking, monitoring.
We need a motion to approve or
1 year subscription.
move to approve.
Second,
1 year subscription.
I'll second.
all in favor?
I
Carried.
Thank you. NBRC stands for the Northern Border Regional Commission. Each year there is an allotment that comes to New York State for certain counties that are part of the NBRC. We are one of them. They've awarded us in the past. I guess our most recent project was to be Trail Town, wasn't it?
I think so, yes.
We identified an area that we'd like to invest in or see some help investing in, which is wayfinding. For those of you that don't know anything about wayfinding or, don't know what we did on this back in 19, I think we did the study originally. It was updated in 2022. What it does is it moves vehicular and pedestrian traffic throughout our communities on a branded signage system that so folks know where they are. It's a very cohesive brand so that they know that they're in Livingston County. This essentially, I think, puts us on par with the Saratogas, the Lake Georges, the Lake Placids, the Ellicottville's of the world, which are great small communities that rural communities sorts that are destinations for visitors and tourism. I love this project. The study itself won an award, which it's a planning award. So obviously, somebody went through it with a very fine tooth comb and did that for us. But
Does this have any connection, I think the final designs with the 36 corridor study? I mean,
that was definitely taken into consideration.
spending a lot of time with the consultant, picking which sign, remember each town had their say at the table.
So we've been trying to fund this for, well, we've been looking for sources for a couple of years. NBRC is a source that does offer this. So we put in a letter of intent that we would like to apply. If we are invited to apply, I think the application's due beginning of June or end of May.
Beginning of June.
If we're invited, we will know, I'm assuming any day now, whether or not they want us, or think that we should apply. I have some numbers here. It's $1,104,000 project that would cover basically the 390 corridors. So our northern gateway in Avon, our southern gateway in Dansville, our Letchworth gateway in Mount Morris, and then Geneseo would be funded through New York Forward.
Right.
There are some outliers like Leicester and Nunde and Lima, those.
That entry was.
I was gonna say, oh, that's right, yeah, that's less. I'm happy to say it's north of the river.
Always corrects me.
If he wasn't gonna, believe it.
Recover. So doing that portion is about $1,000,001. We talked to the consultant about trying to implement this all at once. She said, honestly, you can't do it. It's just way too big of a lift. So she said, take it in phases. So we want to apply for these 4, which we consider to be the priority areas. The NDRC grant would cover 500,000 of it. The New York State Forward program would cover about 350 of it for Geneseo. Then there's a local match, which is 253,847 according to our budget here. What I would like to do is gain commitment from the IDA for 253,847. That's not to say it would all be coming from the IDA. Ian and I have had this conversation, and I'm bringing to you guys possibly a split. If we could do 125 and 125, something like that with the county. He threw out some ARPA, maybe we can look at it that way. Anyway, a couple of different options. So, but I would love to put the application in with a full commitment. NBRC also allows us to chase down that match over the period of a year so that we definitely wouldn't have to use this if that were the outcome. It just strengthens our application that much more. So if I can put in a commitment to match that 253,847 using IDA funds, it wraps it up. If we're invited to apply, we'd be able to do that in May and have that application submitted before our next board meeting. In the meantime, I'm looking to offset 253 with every dollar I possibly can, using possibly the county or anybody else. We can do some town funding potentially. I'm sorry, village funding potentially in the future. we've got some programs that are there, maybe next year. But in any event, I do need to look at a $253,000 commitment from this board. I do think it's a worthwhile project. Wayfinding is something that we've had on our radar for a long time.
I think because it follows up with the work.
It's been one of the open check boxes for us for about 4 years now.
I move that.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
Thanks. I'll let you know, obviously, at the next meeting, if we do get invited to apply, we will be putting an application together and this committee, I think it puts us in a very strong position. Funding, hopefully. NBRC doesn't have a lot of money. Honestly, it's 11 million, I think, statewide. There's a lot of water and infrastructure money and so 500,000 is a great ask because it kind of fits in those little, when they've got $1 million left over, they grab a 200 and a 300 and a 500 and then spread it around. Thank you.
Kind of made jokes about competing against each other with these applications. One of these other committees, but throw it in the pots.
We gotta go for it and find ways to do this. Wayfinding is a tough one to get funded and to see a source that'll do it. You gotta jump out.
You don't ask, you don't receive.
Exactly. Better come to Livingston County or any of them.
Director's comments.
Couple of things, we're still working on Project Mill, building the capital stack there. I've been on a couple of calls with Empire State Development, just to see what and if they've got some things available to help out with that. Work in progress. You got your update with the correctional facility. Solar, we are in negotiations currently with White Creek. We had a good meeting yesterday, 2 days ago, I guess it was, on White Creek, and I've got more follow-up meetings with Horseshoe. Right now, to update you, the pilots are abysmally low in where we believe they should be.
Well, in the sense that that's what they're proposing.
Or they're counter to our proposals. Up there, where we think they should be.
Have they negotiated with California and? No,
Caledonia is what I'm working on. Rush is a whole separate animal. I think at this point, they're not sure what they're gonna do with Rush and whether or not any of this is gonna go there. It's a 180 megawatt project, 170 something of it is slated to go into Caledonia. So they've got a new bulk of it here, Riverboat. And what they need Rush for is the interconnection, which honestly Rush has no say. It would be about the panels, and if it were, to find 10 or 15 more acres to put another 8 megawatts of power up in there, this county, I could see that maybe going to 180 and cutting Rush out. But as it sits right now, their current proposal is 172.8, I think, megawatts here in the town, which has grown from 100 in some of my initial notes, probably 4 years ago. So they are weaning themselves off of Rush.
why is that? Is there any fence?
Too much opposition.
Push back.
Well, I think the same thing here, but with Moraine solar project. How about you?
they were gone. They have a total in our town. But we get a solar one, I don't think they like it.
Send them running for the hills, literally. It's too bad. Yeah, it's, the hard part is that, it's almost a stack that you're negotiating against the state, so.
So I was gonna say, really, so our solar laws are, not saying irrelevant at that point, but they're almost powerless.
With a big project. So, do you think that, your pilots, you're saying you're not happy with what they're offering? Do you think that New York State is in their rescue and say that?
They can prove the hardship, I think, yes.
Yeah, there's something that's going through we may have gone through the budget. I can't find yet. It's a 575B. You guys heard about this one yet? This is the appraisal model, the assessment model that all the assessors are using that was developed by NYSERDA and Department of Taxation and Finance. The argument is that it's artificially low to incentivize. So a lot of communities are voicing that through resolution. Which is going to obviously make it more difficult for us to achieve the numbers that we feel are legitimate versus what the state assessment model feels is legitimate. And unfortunately, that 575B. Governor Cuomo made this sort of famous that he could slide these things in the budget and get them through sort of a side door. And I think there's a little bit of a fear that I know that 575B was in the budget. There's a couple of things that, you know, if it gets passed, you know,
So therefore, if they could negotiate a pilot, we'd be happy with what it's assessed.
that officially low number.
Well, it's tough, whether you like it. or not.
They're incentivizing it, so it's gonna
Comes
be.
up in this plan, in the 4-year, 5-year plan, is to get rid of the gas stove and the furnace. We get the gas shut off this building again. It can happen. You know,
And
how's a restaurant in Brooklyn? So.
So there's,
you know,
I'm not, there's supposedly, because we're dealing with a couple clients, supposedly it will be heat sources. She's shifting it to be heat source only. As opposed to, because she got so much flack from the restaurants. So by 2029, it would be all new commercial builds, heat source only. Is fossil fuel.
When they talk about heat pumps to be this, this so, such an efficient method, it's not.
No.
Well, what's it cost to make, to produce?
Well, yeah, they don't track any of that. By
It's like
2026, I believe it's residential. Your heat source will have to be electric.
And you're cooking also,
So,
by residential,
Yes,
but then when you get into the commercial, I think
they
that's,
tried it, yeah.
I think that's staggered out to 2028 is what's proposed in the budget. I doubt that $1 billion stadium in Buffalo is gonna have gas.
Why not?
You might want to hear it.
We go back, I don't, I back up what I say.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
Are we done?
Let's change it.
Move to adjourn.
That's second.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody wants to stay on camera. The hot mic.